Kelce and what he's doing with just a Midwest low, easy to drink beer.
Yeah.
I mean, that you can hop on your brother's podcast and you guys can just have Taylor Swift just hanging out and, just have a little sip. That's a competitive advantage.
No Free Lunch is presented by T. Rowe Price. The information provided on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified financial and or legal professionals before making any legal or financial decisions or investments. I'm Ndamukong Suh, and welcome to No Free Lunch, where we talk to experts and athletes about how the most successful people in sports manage their money and grow their wealth. Michael Jordan, Travis Kelce, Troy Aikman. What's one thing all these sports figures have in common? They're all investors in beer, wine, or spirits businesses. This is a huge investment sector, especially in the sports world, and I want to know why. So I asked one of our regular contributors, Chris Lyons. Back in 2017, Chris started Lyons Wine. So in addition to his other work in the VC and tech world, Chris is an expert in this space too. We're going to dig into how he started his company and what he sees in the competition right here on No Free Lunch. Chris, man, welcome back to the show, boss. Man, good to see you. It's been a while.
I know. We're in person. We're back.
For sure.
Back at it.
Let's jump into it, man. What is it like to own and operate, and not fully operating, because I know you got an amazing team. You're all over the world, but to have your own wine company, which is Lyons Wines. And really my first question for you is why, and why wine?
Yeah. Well, I mean, why wine? I think the real reason it's stemmed back from just, my family, we always really enjoyed wine, and then when I was in college, I also was serving tables, and I realized that people would always order wine.
Yeah.
And when they would order wine, they'd be like, hey, can I have a red? Can I have a white? Can I have a sparkling champagne? They'd always say it by a color or a grape, right?
Yeah.
But when it came to tequila, they would, or some cognac, or, they'd be like, can I have some Hennessy? Or can I have Tito's and soda? And so it was like a very interesting dynamic that brands were very much aligned with spirits, but wine was just category based.
Okay.
And now, obviously you have Moet, you have Ace, you have, brands that kind of have went outside and have caught the mainstream, Veuve, things like that. But most people, whenever they're ordering wine, from what I've seen, it's very much based off of just an actual category. And so I was like, well, what if you actually treated a wine brand like a spirits brand? And so when someone's and that was the first thing for me. And so I was like, okay, well, if you see Lyons Wine, at least that like that's a brand and that's associated with it, right?
Yeah.
And then the second component that was really interesting to me is just I always like going into areas where I'm the 1% or 0.1%. And so, wine and spirits was like, there's not a lot of, now there's more. But when I first started, there wasn't a lot of black vintners in the building. And so that was a category where I felt like our culture really could kind of play a broader space and really represent. On top of that, I wanted to elevate the palate of the next generation, right? Okay. And I felt like it was important. We've had the privilege of being in some of those rooms, and when you have that glass, you can tell the difference between,
And there's no doubt about that, man. And you talk about elevating the culture and the brands and the sector of wine and spirits. Just in general, it is one of those things that are not easily accessible. And so let's talk about the numbers and what it looks like to actually, what type of bread, what type of money do you need to be able to get started? And especially, you have an Italian brand. So you're in Italy. Like, what does it look like to be able to start a company far from the States and you got to take an airplane to get there. What type of money does it take to get into this sector?
Yeah, so I think I can speak specifically for wine. I know that, tequila and there's other brands that have really kind of started in there. The first step that you have to do is you have to kind of identify what grape that you want, right?
Okay.
And so for me, I like really finding grapes that have great history but might be under exposed.
Okay.
And so, I could have did Pinot, I could have did a Cab, you could do a Rosé, you could do Sauvignon Blanc, whatever. For me, but I found out about Lambrusco, which was like a sparkling red, and to me, I thought it was such a fun wine. It was light, it was easy, effervescent. I thought even just going out to Italy and having that prestige of having an old world wine was extremely important, just from the branding standpoint and also just the heritage and really getting into it. But the most important thing was that, like, how do you think about it not just as one varietal, but really using that region now to then go into other different things. So now if I wanted to make a Brunello, or if I wanted to, do a Chianti, or you name it, like I could actually go deeper into the heritage of Italian wine. So that's the first thing. You have to figure out what kind of grape you are. Then you have to actually go out and either find a vineyard or, work with one or create your own or purchase one. And, the grapes are extremely important in going through that process and finding the right blend.
Yeah.
I've done 4 vintages so far.
Wow.
And each vintage is a little bit different. It's kind of like a software update,
for sure.
you kind of, at first it was 8.5%, and then, it was a little bit more on the fruit forward side. Now I made it a lot drier and added it's 10.5%. And just kind of, I wanted it to feel almost like a red champagne.
Okay.
And so you have to constantly go back and forth and kind of, almost like a mad scientist to try and figure out what that next blend is going to be.
And I know enough to be dangerous. I've looked at wine, I've looked at tequila, all the above.
Yep.
But when you talk about tasting and quality control, like, how do you make sure that you're in control of all those different particular pieces? And then as a manufacturer, like that production, how do you take all of those together and then set a price point that people can, one, you talked about being approachable and easy to try.
Yep.
Is it also in an affordable standpoint, or have you priced yourself in a category where you want to be elevated, but you want people to be able to still have access?
Well, I think you got to really think about that, right? And it's like, how do you want to pursue your brand? One of the things that they talk about in marketing is that, like, it's hard to start at one price and then increase it even more, but it's much easier. Like, that's why we got Nordstrom Rack, where you can start off a high price and get it on sale, right?
Sure.
So you also I think about it for our brand is just kind of being almost like attainable luxury, but where you want someone to feel as if they are also getting a quality product. And, some things, you don't want it to be $5. You don't want it to be, $70. I mean, for me personally, I think Lambrusco has had a wide history of being almost in the 80s, it was the most popular wine. 70s and 80s, that was actually the number 1 imported wine in the entire country for U.S. But it got so popular that the wine, Italy couldn't keep up with demand, and it ended up turning into what they called Coca-Cola wine because the quality was terrible, and then people stopped drinking it. But now there's a resurgence of the grape, and we wanted to kind of put that out there. And so I think you really have to think about what the price point is, how you want it to be consumed, but even more importantly, what do you want from the strategy? Are you looking for a minimum? Are you looking for a high quality, premiumization? So kind of almost like a high-end luxury brand, or do you want it to be mass market and have everybody go after it, right? Yeah. And so for me, I want it to be everywhere. And so the ultimate goal is to get it to a price point where somebody doesn't have to think twice. It's like, do I buy? Because one thing we all do, we go to the grocery store, you're trying to get that bottle of wine. After you get the pasta, you get everything ready to go. You get the wine, and if you don't know what to do, if you don't know what the brand is, then half the time people always look at price. And so you always have to keep that in factor.
So what is your price point?
Right now it's $40.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's $40. And it's you get every penny with, and it's a high quality, one of the highest quality Lambruscos, if not the highest quality Lambrusco you can get on the market right now.
And are you more direct to consumer, or are you more B2B from that
Right
perspective?
now we're doing direct to consumer.
Okay.
And so we have our warehouses out in California, and you can buy online, and then we ship all across the country. And that was a whole process in terms of just figuring out.
Yeah.
I remember my first 300 bottles, somebody ordered a bottle in New York, and I literally put it in a FedEx box and like wrapped it in duct tape and shipped it across the country. And then one of the boxes blew up and like the bottles exploded. So I've gone through the whole system of trying to figure out the journey to get here. So now UPS handles it and makes life a lot easier.
No, I love it. So let's talk about some of the common challenges that you've seen. And then I want to transition into, because spirits in general, athletes are gravitated towards, and they want to be entrepreneurs themselves in the liquor brands and different spaces. And we're going to talk about some case studies and what's really set people apart, and also what have held people back from having successes as well. But let's talk about some of the common challenges you've seen and what athletes could potentially see if they're getting into a brand right now.
I think the biggest challenge right now is just the saturation, to be honest.
Okay.
Oftentimes, a good idea that sounds like a good idea is like, let's make another tequila.
Yeah.
Or let's make another champagne, or let's make another whatever. So I think that what I think we're starting to see is people really starting to find niche products that they personally enjoy. They have a story that they're associated with, and there's a potential market that they can go after.
Yeah.
I mean, last night we were even just talking that non-alcoholic
for sure.
is going crazy right now. Like non-alcoholic beers, think about non-alcoholic wine. There's a whole different world that's starting to evolve, and it's actually going faster with this generation more than ever, of people that are finding alternative ways. And that's becoming an industry it's already a huge industry.
Yeah. So you bring up a good point with non-alcoholic spirits, which is an odd conundrum in my brain from that standpoint for somebody to say that.
Yes.
But it's very popular.
Is a thing though. It is very much a thing, a big thing.
And with that being said, you see people in kind of the trend where it's true or not. And I'm curious to your answer that people are buying less alcohol and drinking less alcohol in this day and age, or is that just something that's more so, as Trump would say, fake news?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's definitely a real thing. I think that there's two things that's going on. One, I feel like we're kind of still coming a little bit out of all the COVID world, where people were just kind of like in their own world and looking for alternative ways to, whether it's relaxing, and you see all these different, options that are coming outside of alcohol. I think the other thing is that, people are really starting to become very, not health conscious, but like, do I want to go out in the club till 3:00 in the morning, or do I want to go on my, run club, or do I want to do the yoga class, or I want to do the workout? So I think that, and that's positive, which I think is a great, I wake up every morning, I try and get a nice little workout in. So that's why for me personally with our wine, and I feel like there are still trends that are going up. So for example, low ABV is a trend that continuing to rise. So not drinking the 40 proof or the 15% alcohol, like ours is 10.5%, very light. That's why you see what's going on in the spritz market, from Aperol Spritzes, which is a brand that has taken off, but they've been around forever. And just now, I would say over the past couple of years, you've seen that just their markets just go to the roof. Hugo Spritzes is another thing that just with Saint Germain is a brand. And these are drinks that people are enjoying. They're light, they're fun. And not feeling that you can still kind of keep yourself in a good state of mind. Yeah. And insert the Lyons spritz, which is the next thing that's going to be taken off soon.
No, I love that. So let's talk about like real test case, and you got to have unfair advantages in all businesses, but I would say even more so in the spirits business to really get not only awareness, but then sell through. So you look at Cincoro tequila, which is MJ, Michael Jordan. Obviously, he's a superstar from a sports perspective, but he previously and still owns an NBA team. What are some of the advantages that you see with him? You talk about garage beer with the Kelce brothers. What are the advantages that they have for doing their particular beer? And then also Troy Aikman that has 8 beer, and our guy Carmelo Anthony, who just got into the Hall of Fame in pro basketball, and his wine game. Like, where do you see those people having unfair advantages of why they've seen success or have not seen success?
Yeah, well. Fun fact: me and Carmelo actually worked together and did his first wine, Oath of Fidelity, when we went out to Chateau Neuf to Pop, and so shout out to him and his team. And congrats again on the Hall of Fame. He did it, and it's a great wine. You got to try that. But I think that for example, like MJ. It's not only the brand, but it's about quality and it's about distribution, right? And so partnering with the leagues, having a direct access to for every single bar and these stadiums, or the partnerships that I think that he can cultivate, whether it's with NASCAR, whether it's the NBA, whether it's the Premier Soccer leagues, you name it. That gives you a competitive advantage to sell your product and get it out there in front. You notice that MJ is not necessarily the face of it.
Which I think is key.
Let's get into this. Why do you think that MJ not being the face of his brand, his tequila brand, is actually like a competitive advantage and a plot twist?
I think it's key because ultimately you want people to enjoy the product in itself and not just be buying it because of MJ. And I think the easy rollout marketing plan could be like Michael Jordan, he's got a tequila brand.
Exactly.
Versus here's Cincoro, and look who's behind it. And he believes in this brand being so prominent and elegant and of high quality. That's a better way of having that approach. And then you see Jeannie Buss. You see all the owners of the Celtics. You see all these other people. You mentioned Venus and Serena now becoming investors in it because it is a brand that they want to be synonymous with, but they are not the brand in themselves. I think that is key. And that's how I also looked at 10-1. Again, being in that category of rum, it's a quality brand, it's a quality product. And then Sierra came on board with it and saying, hey, now I'm a big believer in this one. It's part of my roots. I believe it's part of her roots to some extent. And so
the heritage line.
Exactly. And so then she says, I agree. This has not been elevated yet. It's just Captain Morgan's and all the other well drinks. Let's bring something new to the market. And this is a part of my beliefs and how I look at it. And I just happen to be a superstar as well.
Exactly. No, I agree. I think that, Wayne said it best, real G's move in silence like lasagna.
For sure. No doubt.
And then also he just did a most recent investment that brought in additional strategic partners. What my super close friend Serena, she's an investor, most recent investor, and I think there's a very competitive advantage of creating a halo effect of having people that now are, and she's the owner of her and Venus are owners in the Dolphins. So who knows if you pull up and you might see some Cincoro there, So it's like very, very strategic alliances that really kind of give yourself a competitive advantage. Taking traditional endorsement strategies and now applying them to your brand, your product gives you a halo effect that now allows you to place product market placement into key markets, which I think when you're looking at, a brand and, obviously with Ryan Reynolds and aviation and how they had a huge exit. And same thing with George Clooney and, Casamigos. Like, it's about getting the product out there and at the end of the day, it's volume. And so you want to make sure that you have a very solid distribution strategy that is also naturally aligned with what's going on, with that brand. I mean, Kelce and what he's doing with just a mid West low easy to drink beer.
Yeah.
I mean, that you can hop on your brother's podcast and you guys can just have Taylor Swift just hanging out and, just have a little sip. That's a competitive advantage.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's honestly the only advantage that they have, in my opinion. Truthfully, I'm not a beer drinker, so that's why I'm a hater on that side of things.
You know what I'm saying?
There's a lot of people out there that do have it, but like even look at from a whiskey perspective, because tequila is really hot, and I think a lot of people have gotten into the tequila space, myself included. But I've diversified as well, because like Como's Tequila is an investment that me and my wife did. That's a great group, and Joe Marchese and those guys.
Of course.
But you see Whiskey Proper 12 with Conor McGregor, and then Sierra with 10 to 1, and how they've had success. Mark Farrell and those guys, and I'm being a part of that, being a super early investor there,
absolutely,
and seeing how they've grown. So how have they come up the ranks? And one of the things like I liked about 10 to 1 was it was a category that nobody was talking about. And it's part of my heritage of Jamaican roots and things of that nature. Rum is key.
I've had that too. It's very good. Well, tell me, so what, so when they came to you, was it very much like, what was that thing that got you excited about the brand? And, we've grown up thinking of, like, I think as a great example, rum is something that is a huge brand, but in a huge market, but we just don't necessarily think about it. And 10 to 1 is really did a great job.
Yeah, I think you see of Captain Morgan's and all these brands that are like, again, everybody knows them, but they're kind of bottom of the barrel, like they're well drinks, where 10 to 1 was elevating. And seeing Mark Farrell and his connectivity in this world, coming from Starbucks, learning from why am I drawing a blank on his name right now? Howard Schultz, seeing all of that side of things, and then having his success with Starbucks as well, like that gave him, in my opinion, an unfair advantage. And then being able to put fuel on the fire with Diageo and some of my relationships that I have there with, I think Dia Sims.
Of course,
and seeing
shout out to them and Pronghorn.
Exactly, Pronghorn. So they have those.
Shout out Dia.
They have those unfair advantages, and that's where I got close with Mark before he left, because he made this decision before he left Starbucks, and so it was like, I see the playbook. It's now all about execution, and now he's doing super creative partnerships that I can't speak of right now, because I just was reading this deck earlier today.
That's dope.
And like, those are some of the things that I saw as why I see success in that brand. And it's a category that a lot of people are not talking about. So you're going to smack people in the face, and they're going to be like, oh, wow, like, let's dive into this. Let's try it out. So that was my opinion of why I made an investment from that standpoint. And then the same thing with Como's. Yes, it's tequila, but it was a different vibe. It wasn't the traditional tequila of saying, all right, let's take that Mexican vibe. It was more of a Mediterranean vibe. And that's how I think they took a different spin on tequila and differentiated themselves from that standpoint.
No, I agree. And also, just in terms of, like you said, quality, branding, cocktails, there's so many ways to kind of incorporate the heritage. And I think that I'm very excited to see, especially with the market kind of having a level of pressure to succeed, and thinking through, okay, well, if people aren't drinking, or if they are, if we're trying to figure out what the new strategies are, the things that have already worked in the past, how do we look at this in 2025 and add a whole new approach? The thing of course, I always got to throw my little technology in there, is I think the thing to keep an eye out on, and this is definitely, free game, but if you know how to use AI, if you know how to, AI creative marketing is going to be extremely exciting. If product is going down, that means budgets are going down. But if budgets are going down, you still need to actually you still need to be able to get the brand out there. And so I think that one of my hot take is that AI marketing and distribution and content creation is going to be one of the new avenues that a lot of brands are going to start to take an eye on.
Would you say it's going to be more cost effective than the traditional model, or you're just going to see a bigger bang for your buck based on the same pricing?
I think it is more cost effective. I think that you can get more out of it as opposed to just, imagine if you wanted to go shoot a beach commercial, and 30-second beach commercial that you just end up posting on Instagram that could cost you, $500,000 to $600,000 to $750 if you're a major brand, but you could literally get that same product done in 4 days with the way the technology is evolving right now.
Yeah.
Really give you a competitive advantage and save you cost and allow you to still get the same idea out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's still a world for regular things, don't get it twisted. And I think even more so, which is, when you think about events, like my favorite company that does the best events, in my opinion, is Veuve.
Okay.
So like they'll have like events where you like, and they're very tasteful, very elevated. They have one of the best branding teams when it comes to, like, they have a polo event that's just amazing, great vibes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that as I talk about branding on the AI world, I think branding in terms of in real life experiences and catering to what your brand does is going to be even more important.
We've talked about branding a lot. And when you look at it, where's that intersection of obviously getting eyes on the product, but then the quality of that product being able to match? And where's that intersection of them? Then now it makes it a rocket ship.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think nowadays, especially with social media, with just, the Reddits of the world, the everyday influencers that are going in and reviewing the products, branding is extremely important because that's what's going to help kind of separate you from allowing people to understand your story, like we discussed. For my brand, it's literally a matte red bottle. So in a world of, when you look at a wine bottle, every single bottle looks exactly the same, which is why I was like, I'm going to be the complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And just, it's red. And because even in a wine, like you might have 3 bottles of wine with a bunch of friends. And then at the end, be like, well, what bottle, what brand was that? And 9 times out of 10, most people are going to be like, that was the Cabernet, or that was this. So they don't even necessarily remember the brand, but they remember the product.
Yeah.
And so like for us, that's why I was like, I don't even care. I mean, hopefully you can remember our brand name, but at least the brand itself. But the most important thing, and I think it's going to continue to keep getting more and more important, is actually having a high quality product, because people in a world, especially if alcohol sales are going down and people are drinking less, when you are having a drink, you need to make sure that thing is actually quality.
Yeah.
And I think that, you want to be able to find a product that kind of hits that sweet spot where you can, still deliver to the masses, be identified as, this is this brand that separates itself. You like tequila bottles, you can see just different sizes, products, shapes, you name it. That's actually a whole thing within itself, figuring out what the bottle actually looks like. Having the social media account, the identity that you can relate to. But, I think that having a high quality product that resonates with your audience is extremely important. Like Kelce's beer might be great for his specific audience, but if you're trying to do a high-end beer, that's a whole different type of product that you're going to have to hit.
Yeah. And the only other thing that I would add to that would be the authenticity of it. And when I say that, it's more so like when you say it's additive free or it's these different particular pieces and it actually is quality straight from like pure agave and you're adding just some flavoring pieces, but they're not detrimental to your body. I think that's going to be key.
Absolutely.
For people to want to be around it and say, all right, I actually am drinking something that is a little bit detrimental to my body, but it's not absorbently killing me at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, like that long day and balancing the nerves versus
especially
the body.
With you got
there's a lot of calculations that are coming on. But I agree. I think health is extremely important. And I think we're going to see that being placed more and more. I mean, like even, the amount of sugar that's going to be placed, the cocktails that you're mixing, like people are conscious.
Yeah.
And I think that in this industry, once you gain a level of consciousness from the consumer standpoint, it's hard to go back.
Well, this has been great, boss. I mean, I appreciate everything, and it's good to catch up in person again. And it's been a while. I know we've been Zooming most of the time, but
we should have had a glass, man. I mean,
it's a little early in the afternoon, but it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. All you tuning in.
It's time for the confidently curious question. where we ask questions that are one step ahead. Sponsored by T. Rowe Price, where they believe that asking better questions can lead to better outcomes. So my confidently curious question of the day is, what's the word that means something pledged as a security for repayment of a loan to be forfeited if the borrower defaults? A, interest, B, collateral, C, IOU. The answer is B, collateral. For example, a house or a piece of land are commonly used as collateral on a loan. Also, you could potentially look at stocks or bonds as considered other examples of collateral for a loan. That's our confidently curious question for the week. Thanks to our sponsor, T. Rowe Price, for modeling the power of better questions in their approach to making better investment decisions. T. Rowe Price proudly sponsors No Free Lunch. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the podcast participants and do not necessarily reflect those of T. Rowe Price. Their sponsorship supports the platform and does not imply endorsement of specific content or perspectives. Amazing conversation with my guy, Chris Lyons. I think my final thoughts come down to this: quality and marketing are key if you want to have a successful spirits or wine brand. And if you don't find that intersection between those two, you're most likely going to fail. Ultimately, I think obviously having celebrity power and influence is key as well, but you got to build a quality brand with great marketing and obviously stay true to the ethos of that and the thesis of that brand. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to No Free Lunch, wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple, Spotify, or YouTube.